Welcome to the ClientWise little update here on the Congress passes a new PPP loan legislation. My name is Lee Reams, and I'll be your presenter today. This will just be a little short update on the what's included in the new law. But if you haven't already, I want you to download the PDF material for this short presentation. It includes all the changes and actually the PDF has the actual legislation tacked onto the end of the material, so you can read the whole thing if you'd like to. So anyway, before we get started here, there's no CPE for this because this is just going to be a short awareness presentation. We do have the page numbers. I refer to them on the slides, and you'll see that in the upper right-hand corner there where there's an X. So let's get into this right away. Okay, so there's been a lot of confusion and very little guidance from the outset of the Paycheck Protection Program. And as a result here, Congress has passed the new Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act. So originally when we did all this, the word forgiveness created a stampede of people to get these loans. And most of these borrowers didn't understand the purpose of the loans and got them and then realized that they didn't really apply for them. So, and then we had all the cheaters jump in, and the Department of Justice has already had several cases that they've made public. One in particular is a couple of gentlemen back east who on the East Coast that had some restaurants, and they had closed all our restaurants in 2019, but decided that they had employees they wanted to pay, so applied for these loans and got caught up with. And most of the people, the smaller businesses, were unable to get these loans because they were unprepared. The banks were unprepared and favored their larger business clients. And then when you get around the forgiveness criteria, it's hard to comply with, especially if now the employees can make more getting unemployment than they were working. So employers are having a hard time getting their people to come back to work. Anyway, all these problems caused Congress to produce this new Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act to alleviate some of these issues. And the president signed that on June 5th, 2020, which is now the effective date for that legislation. So first thing we're going to talk about is a covered period. So the covered period is the period of time that the funds are supposed to be spent on qualified expenses, and we'll get to those in a minute. But anyway, what they've done, originally you had an 8-week covered period that you had to spend the money, and that's been now extended to 24 weeks, or the earlier of 24 weeks, or December 31st, 2020. So that means somebody gets a loan right now, they have through December 31st to spend the money in the qualified manners. Anyway, if the loan was obtained before the enactment of this new bill, the borrower may choose between the original 8-week period or the 24-week or / December 31st, 2020 period. So this will give the borrowers more time to comply with forgiveness requirements and other terms of the loan. And they also changed the loan maturity. So the CARES Act specified a loan maturity of 2 years for amounts not forgiven. The PPPFA extends the maturity to a minimum of 5 years for loans finalized after the enactment of the PPPFA. For loans finalized before this new legislation, the lender and the borrower can agree to change to a longer term. And now that means that the law didn't say the lender has to, so it's up to the lender to agree to that. And also we have the use of the funds was always a big issue here. So the CARES Act did not limit how the Paycheck Protection Program loan funds could be spent. So as long as they were spent on payroll, mortgage interest, that's for loans established before the February 15th, 2020, or lease or rent payments, which were enforced prior to February 15th, 2020, and utilities enforced prior to February 15th, 2020. Then the SBA administration subsequently limited the use of the funds other than payroll to no more than 25% of the forgiveness. So the CARES Act said there was no allocation between the two, but the SBA took it upon themselves then to limit it to expenses other than payroll to more than 25% of the forgiveness. So with the enactment, the Congress has rebutted the administration's attempt to limit the expenses other than payroll to no more than 25% of the forgiveness. Instead, the Act requires at least 60% of the loan proceeds to be used for payroll, and up to 40% can be used for business rent, mortgage interest, but not for prepayments of interest or prepayment of principal, and utility payments. So there's a big way this is worded. Senator Marco Rubio was against signing this bill or against voting for this bill, and was trying to put a stop to it, but finally gave in to the rest of his colleagues. But his issue was, under this new bill, it says at least 60% of loan proceeds to be used for payroll, which means if less than 60% are used, there is zero forgiveness. And in the past, there was forgiveness based on the old rules. If you had less, you just got less forgiven. So anyway, he got convinced to go ahead with this. So anyway, the bill went with the original wording. So you got to be very careful here. That means if less than 60% is used for payroll, there is no forgiveness whatsoever. Okay, now rehiring employees is a big issue. So to alleviate the employer's rehiring problems, an exemption is provided for employers who are unable to rehire an employee who was working for an employer on February 5th, 2020. And that's because of this unemployment so beneficial, a lot of employees don't want to come back. Or to hire similarly qualified employees on or before December 31st, 2020. Or in case of the business activity of the borrower, for such business was operating before February 15th, 2020, due to compliance or requirements established or guidance issued by the CDC or OSHA related to the maintenance of standards of sanitation, social distancing, or any other worker or customer safety requirement related to COVID-19 during the period March 1st, 2020 through December 31, 2020. So they're going to give some relief for that. And we'll see how the SBA actually handles that on their form, their forgiveness applications when they revise it. So, and also under the CARES Act, the deferral payments for the PPP loan principal, interest, and fees that was originally 6 months to 1 year has been changed in the Act to be the date the loan forgiveness amount is remitted to the bank by the SBA. So that means there's no payments required in these loans until the loan is actually forgiven. And the loan won't be forgiven until the SBA gives the money to the banks, and then the bank will forgive the loan. So, and then the payments have to start. In payroll tax deferral, so the CARES Act prevented employers who received PPP loan forgiveness from being able to defer payments of payroll tax under that provision of the CARES Act. So this new PPPFA changes that rule and allows employers to defer payroll taxes under that original provision of the CARES Act. And that deferral allows 50% of the eligible payroll taxes to be deferred until December 31st, 2021, and then the balance, the other 50%, to December 31, 2022. And eligible payroll taxes under that provision include the 6.2% of Social Security, that's the OHSDI, and equivalent railroad retirement taxes. And this applies for wages paid March 27th through December 31st, 2020. So that's all the changes, and hopefully this will give the SBA additional time to modify and simplify the forgiveness application forms. And I hope this will clarify what's coming down for all of you. Anyway, And we want to thank you for joining us. We look forward to your participation in our other education offerings. Take care. Be safe.